compassion and brought Krishna consciousness to the world today and for generations to come. In class, we talk about the fundamentals of pastoral counseling, the toolbox, and then the bigger picture. So we're going to focus on the toolbox today. Briefly, the fundamentals talk about what we're trying to do, which is to encourage our counselees to feel safe and progress in their spiritual life. Talk about our qualifications to give counseling, which means our knowledge from Prabhupada's books and of psychology, as well as our own realization of that knowledge. Talk about the very important and foundational principle of confidentiality in counseling. When something is confidential, it's confidential. Period. No exceptions. To be a servant leader, in other words, the purpose of our counseling is to help people. As one of my salesman friends puts it, you talk up. Always talk up, not talk down. Talk up to the counselee. Like, here's a person, oh, you need my help, I will. And finally, limitations. Can anyone read the caption here?
Until you spread your wings, you'll have no idea how far you can walk.
Right. Our limitations as pastoral counselors, meaning, as has been mentioned, we can legally and professionally and responsibly help people based on Scripture. But that does not entitle us to help them as financial counselors, as psychological or mental health professionals, give them medical advice or academic advice. So we have to know our parameters. It's also important to understand, what does it mean here? Descriptive and not proscriptive.
We kind of generally, we don't tell them specifically what to do, but just tell them how they should figure it out themselves, or how they should get it.
Yes, exactly. Help them understand their situation. To describe and help them reflect. What is the situation? Not, oh, you should do this and you should do that. Okay. So let's get to our, yes.
So if you are also a mental health professional, like myself, then how?
You should focus on your husband. If you are educated in one of these fields, yes, by all means. But then at least there should be some boundaries.
But that's what I was trying.
Yes. Okay. Now I'm taking off my my devotee hat and putting on my psychologist or my counselor hat. Yeah. Right. Okay. And there are legal ramifications of these things too. If we stay within our lane and we just base our prescription on our responses, I should say, on Scripture, then we're okay. But if we start giving advice outside of our lane, then we risk explosion. People could actually sue us for giving them advice that we're not qualified to do.
Right. But what I was saying is, I am qualified in that field as well.
Yes.
So then how to draw the boundaries to know, like...
Just tell them. Do you want me to answer that as...
Psychiatrist?
Yes. And also, do people come to you knowing that you also have those credentials? So they want both. They're kind of coming to you for both purposes. Yeah, as long as it's clear with the counseling. Okay. Any other questions before we get into the nitty-gritty here? Okay. So here's the overview of our toolbox, the open-ended questions, context, reflective listening, blank canvas, self-disclosure, and resourcefulness. There are, of course, many, many others, but these are some that are most accessible to those of us who are learning to do this as we progress in our basic spiritual path. Okay, first of all, the open-ended question. What is the definition of an open-ended question? A question which cannot be answered yes or no. In other words, a question that does what?
Makes you talk.
It helps the person answer and speak. We want to hear primarily when we're counseling. Krishna gave us 2 ears and only 1 mouth. So we are listeners, and open-ended questions stimulate response. Generally, people come for counseling, they want to talk. So we want to encourage them with the open-ended questions. How do open-ended questions begin?
How or what?
How or what? How or what? Reggie, you stole my thunder.
A lot of that going around.
A lot of that going around. You started. Yes, how or what? How or what inspire people to talk? Why, on the other hand, makes people feel what? Accused, yes. They're interrogatory. Why did you, even if it's asked innocently, it still is putting people on the defensive, forcing them to justify their actions. So, why questions, when, where, those are very specific, they don't inspire conversation. So how or what? So the example there was, good day? I suppose. How was your day? Well, so this inspires the person to respond. I like telling us, how are you feeling? Okay. Any questions about questions? By the way, about questions, before we go on, have you ever noticed how you can, well, let me ask you, who is in charge of a conversation?
One last question.
One who's asking questions. Whoever's asking questions is directing the conversation. So the more we're asking questions, the better counselors we are. Asking the right question, that's the challenge. That's the challenge, how to ask the right question. Have any of you seen the card demonstration? Would you like to see that? Okay, so I need 2 volunteers who are familiar with a deck of cards. Draupadi? Okay, also, who are also a little psychotic. Psychic, excuse me. Draupadi? Okay. Okay, and Manaram? Okay. So, Manaram, please think of a card.
This is not wrong, it's not wrong.
Oh, I'm sorry, Manaram. Think of a card and come and tell me what it is, but don't tell anyone else. Put it right here on my notes, okay? Just type it right in, nobody but you or me will see it. Okay, did you do it? No. Okay, just whisper to me. Okay. All right, Draupadi. Prabhu, please think of that card, meditate. Okay, send psychic waves. Draupadi, you're familiar with the deck of cards, right? So there's red cards and there's black cards. Which of those 2 would you choose?
Black.
Okay, and that leaves?
Red.
And of the reds, there are 2 suits, diamonds and hearts. Which of those would you choose?
Diamonds.
Okay, and among the diamonds, there are face cards and there are number cards. Which of those would you choose?
Face.
Okay, and that leaves?
Numbers.
Okay, numbers, there are odds and evens. Which of those would you prefer?
Odds.
Okay, and among the odds, there are 5 and less and 7 and more. Which of those 2?
5 and less.
Okay, and that leaves?
7 and more.
Okay, and of those, you got a 7 and a 9. Which of those would you prefer?
9.
Okay, and that leaves?
7.
7 of?
So was it diamonds?
7 of diamond. What was your card?
So the,
All right.
She's so selfish.
So,
I tried to block it,
Even
but
when
it still
I
went.
pressed it, he switched it.
Yes.
it's just asking, what was I doing?
Asking the right question.
Asking right. Did I know the conclusion?
Yes.
Did I tell her the conclusion?
No.
What did I do? Just ask the right questions. So even when the person comes with a problem and the answer is just as obvious as anything, what do we do as counselors?
Say, and that leaves.
We ask questions. Even though we can see exactly where this needs to go, we ask questions because if the person discovers it themselves, aha, if we tell them, they maybe. Okay?
What are your other options? What are your other options?
Yeah, what are your other options? Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm getting a divorce. What are your other options? Okay. Now, when we're getting to know our counselee, we want to understand the context of their lives because that allows us to respond in a more informed way. What is your family background? Very foundational for everybody's psychology, even if it's not evident. This includes questions like getting to understand the family history, were the parents together, were they divorced, if there were multiple siblings, where in the birth order does a person come? The first in the birth order is generally more, they receive the brunt of the parenting. Okay? The parents are going to raise the best kid in history. If there's a second child, it's like, okay. The third one, like, whatever. Yeah, so the youngest child is the perpetual baby in the family. The older child is more adventurous and tends to be more accomplished in most cases. So where does this person come? Your academic background, your work background, hobbies and interests, and in this context, excuse me, Prabhu, is that yours?
I have to go, but thank you so much.
Yeah, in our spiritual counseling, it's really important to understand what motivated the person in the first place to take this big step and deeply involve themselves in Krishna consciousness. Any questions on this?
Yes, you were mentioning about family background, about how the oldest Shoni is, the youngest Shoni is. So I was wondering, what if it's a situation like a blended family, like the mother divorces when the child's very young, marries somebody else that has multiple children, and then,
Yeah. That also has a marked effect on our psychology. There's more uncertainties, sometimes something growing up, or sometimes hostilities. It's a matter of experience, really. I have observed that people who come from established nuclear families tend to be more grounded, and people who haven't tend to be more exploratory. Okay? And by grounded, I don't necessarily mean in a better way. They're just kind of like more fixed in what they're doing in their lives, a little more rigid. Okay? All right, anyway. Anything else on this? Yes, Prabhu.
One thing I found helpful to remember these questions is an acronym called FORD,
Okay.
which stands for Family, Occupation, Recreation, and Dreams.
Okay.
So if I don't know what to say, especially with a newer person that I don't know very well, I'll go to one of those four.
Family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. Beautiful. Okay. And so really we just, with the open-ended questions we ask, please tell me about yourself. Let me understand your life. So then reflective listening. What is reflective listening? The person says something and then we respond in our own words. What I'm hearing you say is, this is just demonstrating to our counselee that we are not only listening, but we're assimilating. And the reason it's advised to use our own words is because that really just shows assimilation. I understood what you said, I'm giving it back to you, and we're prepared for correction also. We're presenting what I'm hearing you say is this. Is that correct? And people will sometimes respond kind of with hostility. No, that's not what I meant at all. And that's good. Okay, that means you've done well. And there's a yes but, isn't it? Yes, but that's not quite right. So we go through this exercise until the counselee is convinced that we have truly understood them, properly understood them. Blank canvas is sort of a classic response to a person who's having difficulty in their current situation. If you could do anything you want, what would it be? If you could reboot, if you refresh your whole life, what would it be like now? That helps people get to that question that Brother Hare Prabhu was asking, what does he want? What does he really want? In the course of counseling, we're sometimes tempted to tell a little bit about our lives as a way to demonstrate empathy, and that can be effective, but it can be overused also. Benefit, right? The benefits are it shows that you have a situation that I can relate to. The risk is that we end up talking too much about ourselves, telling too much about ourselves, and then we kind of lose the plot of the counseling session. So on a limited basis, self-disclosure can be helpful. And lastly, Brother Hare Prabhu also mentioned to be resourceful. That is, to recognize how we can help, but also to have others who can help available to us. Like, okay, here's a counselor, here's a mental health option, here's a family counselor, here's a financial advisor, like that. Just having those in our speed dial, in our database, and again, recognizing our limitations and knowing when to stop. Okay, those are the tools. We'll get to the bigger picture a little bit later, but yes,
Prabhu, you're talking about the disclosure, right? How much we can disclose the information, but sometimes like we have to disclose things to gain the confidence of the other person, right? So they can also talk freely. So how we deal, like, should we limit our disclosure at that point, or like how?
just self-disclosure.
Yeah.
Just not to dwell on it too much. Oh, you're going through this problem. I went through a similar problem. There's a technique called feel, felt, found. I know how you feel. I once felt the same way. And I found that by going through processes like this, I was able to work around the problem. Is that right, Doctor? Okay. Okay, any other questions? Yes, people.
With Gen Zs, if you disclose too much, they'll try to become your counselor.
Role reversal. That is a technique, role reversal. But not that. Yeah. Okay, boomer. I did that more than you. Okay, anything else? All right, so what I'd like you to do now is partner up with somebody you don't know, if that is possible. Somebody who is more or less a stranger to you. And if you're having a difficult